You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hey there, it's Dr. J. I got my good friend here, Dave Korsunsky. We're going to be chatting about how to assess your thyroid. Dave's got some great technology called Heads Up Health, headsuphealth.com. We use this software a lot to help patients kind of chart their lab data so they can follow it, create graphs, compare it to other variables like sleep or blood sugar or how many steps you've done in a day. So we're going to really dig into how to look at and how to assess your thyroid and what numbers and lab values we look at. Dave, how we doing, man?
Doing great, Doc. Thanks for having me. I can see on Skype here that you're sitting in your home office, and I remembered that just a few months ago I was over at your place, and we did a show on testing ketones, which went great, and happy to be back and actually talking about something that I see coming up all the time. Heads Up Health is pretty active online in a lot of the different Facebook groups and different communities on ketogenic diets and paleo diets. And this question of the full thyroid panel comes up all the time. So glad we can dive into it. It's also something that was personally relevant for me. And you may recall when I was your patient, that was one of the things you helped me fix. So I can throw in some of my own personal experience here as well.
Absolutely, that's great. I was going to do a nice live on-screen recording here of what my ketones were, but my battery is dead. Damn it. I hate wasting these strips. They're so expensive.
Where do you get yours from? It's $4 a strip here in the U.S. I know there's cheaper sources out there.
Well, I got it from the person that you told me to get it from over in New Zealand.
That's right,
on
you did.
eBay.
Actually, it was Australia.
Australia.
Yeah, it was Australia.
Yeah.
But they're clamping down on that now. I think it's illegal for them to ship to the United States now, so they're getting harder to find on eBay.
Yeah, I hear you. They're still there a little bit though. But today for lunch, I had a collagen bar. I had tuna with a little bit of like Mark's Primal Mayo, so like egg, egg olive oil or egg avocado oil, product. And then like some shreds of carrot in there and like a little bit of cut up spinach. So it's pretty high fat, very little carbohydrates. So my ketones would probably be around 0.6 millimole right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned to you, I don't have my meter with me. Otherwise, we could nerd out and do some ketone testing like we did last time.
Absolutely.
Another time.
Absolutely. Well, today we were going to talk about thyroid and just really put the focus on thyroid. And thyroid's important, right? Thyroid's that gland that sits kind of right where that bow tie of the neck would be, just below and outside of the Adam's apple. And it produces a metabolic hormone called thyroid hormone. And that hormone gets produced and it gets converted and activated in the body. And there's a lot of things that are responsible for making thyroid hormone and activating thyroid hormone. Like we've talked a lot in the past about ketosis and insulin resistance, and having too much or too little insulin can really have an effect on how thyroid hormone gets activated, which is really interesting. So with the software that you created over at headsuphealth.com, anyone listening can go head over there and get a free account, but you can plug in your thyroid lab values. And let's kind of just start. Well, let's just start with an anecdote, kind of your personal story of us working together with your thyroid, and then we'll dig into the meat of the matter here.
Yeah, so this was back in, I think, 2011, 2012, when you were still working out of the Cupertino office.
Yeah.
And you may recall, you and I met at Asprey's first ever
Yep.
conference in San Francisco, and you were hustling there. You had your adjustment table out,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this guy is awesome.
Mm.
So the first time I started working with you, I just brought in all my labs from my conventional doctor. And I had them in a horrendous spreadsheet at the time.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who have those horrendous spreadsheets. But as we started going through my numbers and you started looking at stuff, you noticed that the only test I'd ever had done was TSH. And I maybe had 2 or 3 of those done over the course of the lifetime, maybe just was standard physical, et cetera. And so that was one of the first things you ordered for me was a full thyroid panel. And I guess I think it's important to talk about all the components of the full thyroid panel. Also important to address why maybe a lot of conventional doctors only order TSH. But in any event, that was my situation. So as soon as we ran the full panel, there were a few things that you noticed and that you immediately picked up on. The first is you noticed that TSH actually looked good. It was great, actually, in range, perfect. But when we looked under the covers a little bit, we noticed, first of all, T4, also excellent. And you were educating me on all these numbers.
Yeah.
I had no idea what any of this stuff meant as a patient. And you sat down with me and took me through this whole panel.
Right.
And you said, hey, T4 is the start of the whole cascade. That number looks good. But then you noticed my T3 was incredibly low, out of range low. And my reverse T3 was out of range high.
Yes.
And everything else was fine. So that was my situation. And then we started working on it. And we can talk about the treatment protocol later, but maybe you can just get into a little bit more about, first of all, what are the components of the full thyroid panel, why it's more important to get that besides just TSH, and even how people can get that if their doctor won't do it for them.
Right. Exactly. So you can use Heads Up Health and just kind of plug your data in there to help keep track of it. Anyone that's really doing their thyroid testing, they can use that as a technology to help track it and then compare it to sleep or maybe their carbohydrate levels, right? You could plug it up to MyFitnessPal or one of these apps and then see how your carbohydrates and or your insulin chart with your thyroid hormone. But starting off here, we kind of have the domino rally of our thyroid hormone cascade, meaning the first block that falls over is TSH. Now, TSH is a brain hormone, so a lot of people really get wrapped up in TSH being too high or too low. But it's a brain hormone. It's not quite like measuring your thyroid hormone. It's very indirect. So TSH is looking at how the brain is yelling or talking to the thyroid. The whole analogy is if the thyroid's not producing enough thyroid hormone, it's like someone across the room that can't hear you, you instinctively raise the volume of your voice, which is because the thyroid is on the lower side, right? Lower thyroid function, someone can't hear you, you raise the volume, the thyroid raises the volume of TSH. And just like if you're in a library and it's really quiet and they're really close to you, you whisper and you lower the volume because the thyroid or the person is very receptive to your voice. So think of your thyroid kind of in those analogies. So TSH too high or too low can mean issues. The problem is if you're waiting for the thyroid to be assessed and you're looking at the TSH, it can take a very long time. Some even say 8 to 10 years to assess the thyroid properly by looking at the TSH, because it's a late stage indicator. It's not the thyroid, it's the brain. So if you're looking and waiting for the thyroid to get assessed, it may take a while. And not to mention, the cutoffs for the reference range are pretty high. I mean, typically in the East Coast, it's going to be about 5.5 on the TSH. In the West Coast, it's going to be a 4.5 on the TSH, where once it gets to that height, we call that hypothyroidism because the brain's having to yell so loud that the thyroid is, as we're assuming, is not responding well. I'll just kind of take a breath there.
Yep.
Any comments on that, Dave?
No, I think it makes sense. I mean, especially if you're waiting on changes that have to happen in the brain. So help me understand that. That's presumably stuff that takes a lot longer to settle in, and it may mean eliminating stress in your life. It may mean
sleep.
Dietary change. It may mean all these other things that first have to show up at a brain level, maybe like at a neurotransmitter level or at some level in the brain. So that has to happen first before you see change in thyroid. Is that right?
Yeah, so when we look at TSH, it can be a really good indicator if something's really high of diagnosing or picking up hypothyroidism. Now, the conventional range, 4.5 on the West Coast, 5.5 East Coast. I like it to be around 1. Definitely below 2.5. 1 to 2.5 is a pretty good, what I call functional range for the thyroid. That's a good starting point. Again, where it gets fuzzy is when you start supporting someone's thyroid because they need thyroid with thyroid glandular or hormone. Most docs are basing the treatment off of the TSH. Not a good way to do it because the brain is very sensitive. It's more sensitive to thyroid hormone than the actual peripheral receptor sites. So my analogy for my patients is go outside on a hot day and figure out the temperature by touching the sidewalk. Well, the sidewalk conducts heat much higher than the air, so it's going to be a lot hotter, i.e. the TSH may respond more sensitively because of the receptor sites, just like the sidewalk would be hotter or be more sensitive to heat than the air. So that's step 1. Step 2 is then looking at the T4 hormone, which is what's made by the thyroid. So TSH comes down, talks to the thyroid. The thyroid goes through this process called deiodination, where it's adding and building thyroid and tyrosine and thyroglobulin molecule to build this thyroid hormone. All right, vitamin A, copper, zinc, magnesium, selenium are also involved in those processes. Vitamin A as well. And
so that's why you got me on the selenium. Part of your treatment then was adding some of these supplements in at some point. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Iodine can be really important too. You just got to be very careful with iodine because a lot of people that have thyroid issues, it's autoimmune in nature. It's the immune system attacking the thyroid gland. So you got to be careful because more iodine can be like throwing gasoline on the fire. So you got to be careful in the beginning. I always am more favor giving selenium in the beginning over giving iodine as well, just because of that inflammatory mechanism. So
that's where you started me off. You started me with selenium, and then we added the iodine in later.
Yeah, exactly. So we have our T4, right? We make that through this whole iodination process. Then we convert it or we activate T4 to T3. So when we look at T4, we like our T4 total being around 6 to 10. That's a pretty good range for T4 total. And T4 free about 1 to 1.5 is a pretty good range. And again, go over to Heads Up Health to get all these ranges more in depth. We then cleave off, right? This is part of the this is the 5' deiodinase enzyme that's selenium based that now cleaves off the iodine process. So it's iodination is what makes the thyroid hormone. Then we deiodinate, we pull an iodine, we grab an iodine off. So instead of being T4, now it's T3. There's 3 iodines now, and we activate T3, which is the active thyroid hormone. So that's what's really having the whole metabolic reaction in the body, increasing our temperature, increasing metabolism, energy, heat, temperature. And the selenium enzyme is really important to that. And when you go on Heads Up, you'll see T3 free. We like that above 3, above 3 to 8, 3 to 4, 3.8, 3.4 is fine. Pretty good. Right in that top 25%, top third of the reference range is great. 3.0 to about 4 is fine. And that's for T3 free. And T3 total, we like above 100. 100 to 130 is fine. And again, we fine-tune that with objective temperature testing, making sure the temperature is looking well. So typically 97.8 to 98.2 if we're looking at the armpit, or 98.2 to 98.6 if we're looking at the mouth, is a pretty good way to assess that. And we'll do that in the morning before we get up, and we'll do it in the afternoon before lunch. Because if we increase metabolism, we're thinking that that's going to spill over into objective symptoms like energy, but we'll also see it as heat in the temperature.
So I remember when we were working on Heads Up, you said, Dave, you need to have a place to track basal temperature as well.
Yes.
And that's part of what you're doing. Do you use that a lot to diagnose or to zero in on thyroid health?
It's a good indicator to look at side by side. The problem is a lot of people have broken thermometers, and I see people coming back with 95 on their temperature, and it's just like they have no, they're feeling better, their temperature's up, and then we tell them to get a new thermometer, and it's better. So, I don't put too much stock in it, but it's nice to see it when it starts to change and move in the right direction, and it correlates with symptoms, and it does that a lot.
I know that when you were helping me along those lines, it was specifically recommended to use a mercury-based thermometer. And I know at one time you had those on your website, and they're getting increasingly harder to get. So, is that still something you sell on your site?
Yeah, I have a couple right here. I'm going to throw them up on screen. I actually have 4 right here. I
Yep,
used to recommend more of the mercury. The problem was I actually dropped a couple, and I was just like, "Damn it, it's too dangerous."
I
'Cause then
did
you,
too.
so it's just I just said, you know what? Even though it's accurate and nice, it's just not worth the potential of dropping it and having
Yep,
the toxicity of having to clean it up. So I went away
agreed.
from it just because there's some accidents.
Sure.
So what I typically use now is just the highest ranked fertility digital thermometer on Amazon that's measured
Cool.
to a
Yeah, it'd be
hundredth.
good. Yeah, it'd be good to get that model if you have it. I know
Yeah,
I'm
I
to get
have it
another
in
one.
my store over at justinhealth.com. It just links to Amazon,
Got it.
and it
Yep.
Justin Health approved products, and then my thermometer is there. But it's just the highest
Sweet.
ranked fertility digital, not just a digital, but a fertility one, because fertility has to be more accurate than not because of the nature of hormone testing and temperature.
Yep. Good.
So that's where I'm at now. So I do like temperature. It's nice for patients to see it, to feel it. Also, with the temperature testing, that's pretty cool, is you can get a window into how the adrenals are functioning too. Because if your temperatures are varying greater than 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit per day, it can be a really big sign that the adrenals are overtaxed.
Hmm.
So one of the things we see is as people's thyroid and adrenals get healthier and better, their temperatures get warmer and they're more consistent. Warmer and more consistent means healthier thyroid and healthier adrenals.
Yep. Okay, that's all good. So, what's on the rest of the panel? I know there's a bunch of other stuff that's included in the full thyroid panel. We're slowly working our way through it here,
So
but you,
TSH, we already mentioned, the T4
yep,
free in total. Again,
yep,
the free represents about 2 to 5% of the hormone level. The total
yep,
represents the balance.
yep,
T3 free in total.
yep,
T3 uptake, what's being absorbed and taken up by the receptor sites.
yep,
We like that above, upper 20s, 28 to lower 30s, 32, 33, 34 is fine.
hmm,
We also like to look at reverse T3. Now, this is important because this was something that came up on your test, right?
yep,
You had good levels of T4, but then you weren't converting it downstream to T3, right? We had this high
exactly.
level of reverse T3 and just, a subclinical low level of T3, but it was really going downstream to RT3 or reverse T3.
Exactly. Yep.
And reverse T3, it's like putting blanks in your gun. You fire the gun
Uh,
off, you hear the noise, but no bullet comes out. You got this blank that's sitting in that thyroid receptor site. It's supposed to be like T3, but it doesn't quite have that metabolic property, so to speak.
So do you see that a lot, Doc, where that conversion is just not happening, right? And what are the first things you think of when you see that the T4 to T3 conversion is just not operating right?
Great question. So the first scenario, if T4 to T3 is not converting well, but we see reverse T3 going high,
Yep.
we always think selenium and we always think stress. So then
Yep.
when we look at stress, we're making sure the diet's good, sleep's good. We're looking more at the adrenal to make sure the adrenal function is good as well. And making sure practices of meditation, the right amount of exercise are good, not over exercising or under exercising, keeping all the bad foods out. And then we'll even use things like selenium to help lower reverse T3, and even things like milk thistle to lower it as well, to help clear it out, because a lot
Mhm.
of that reverse T3 is made by the liver. So we can clear it out, but we got to fix the underlying reason of why it was getting converted there to begin with. That's the key.
Yep. Makes sense. And I think in my case, it was just a combination of things, exactly like you described. It was a really stressful time for me personally. You also introduced the selenium supplement. I also, at that time, started moving over to a much cleaner diet, more of a paleo-based diet, coming off of just more of a standard diet. So I think all of those things helped. And then what we were doing was we were running the thyroid panel. You'd give me my treatment protocol in my Word document. I'd get the intervention. We'd run the thyroid panel 3 months later, and we'd track the numbers, and I could get engaged in that process. And one of the reasons I built Heads Up was because I genuinely believe that when the patient can get engaged with their numbers and understand what they mean, it helps. It just gets you get better results. And so we saw it, right? We'd run the tests every 3 to 6 months, and we'd look at the new numbers together. And I just love that. It
Yeah.
was really, really effective.
Yeah, and I think we also did some milk thistle as well to help. If I remember correctly, you were doing those insanity workouts.
Yeah, I just
hour?
crushed. I had crushed my adrenals.
Yeah.
I was overtraining. I was in a stressful situation work wise. My diet wasn't great. Having too much fun on the weekends. It
Yeah,
was
you're doing that.
yeah, all of the ingredients were there for a disaster. But luckily, we were able to intervene and get things course corrected.
Yeah, I remember you definitely made some changes with your diet. You were getting more quality fat, better quality fats in there as well. That was helping out a lot.
Yep.
And then we got you on the adrenal support too, which I think made a big difference. And I know we also had some gut issues that came up
Yep.
down the road too. That I think as we addressed those, we had improvements there too. I think maybe a Klebsiella or some kind of bacterial overgrowth.
Yeah, these were all important pieces that we had to work on.
Yeah.
Actually, another big one for me was actually just tracking my sleep. I know it sounds silly, but even just getting some basic metrics from like a wrist-worn device, a Fitbit. In my case, I'm wearing one on my wrist now. Just having some data about when I was going to bed and when I was getting up and how much sleep I was getting on a regular basis. Until you see the numbers, I didn't realize that I was maybe 6 hours, not getting enough. And when you're overtraining and not getting enough sleep, and you start to see all of that, and you start to see the information I'm getting from you that are suggesting lifestyle related stressors, having that sleep information was really, really helpful, and it brought a whole new awareness to my sleeping patterns and helped me try to move to a more natural sleep wake cycle instead of midnight or 1, for example, going to bed at 10. And it takes some time to get your body back on a more normal cycle, but there's so much data we were collecting that was helpful along the process, and that's just part of what we wanted to do in Heads Up, is give people a place to track it all. But sleep was really important in addition to all of the things that you mentioned that we fixed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of just coming back in line here, we talked about the thyroid conversion piece. Sleep really helps because sleep can help curtail cortisol levels. Can also help maximizing growth hormone levels, which are important for being anabolic and repairing tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Also can help with recycling neurotransmitters, right?
Yep.
And also help. Yeah, go ahead.
There was also some antibodies on that thyroid panel
Yeah.
that you always look at as well. You're
Yeah.
always looking for autoimmunity. So
Yes.
maybe talk about that for a bit.
Awesome. One step ahead of me. Let me just
Okay.
let me just come full circle on the thyroid conversion piece.
Yep.
Almost there. So the sleep piece is really important.
Yep.
The selenium is really important for all the nutrient levels and helping to convert that downstream.
Yep.
Also, insulin resistance. A lot of people that have high levels of insulin, they may have this hard time converting thyroid hormone or activating it T4 to T3. If they have high levels of stress hormone, that may help as well, or hurt the conversion. If they really have almost low levels of cortisol because of HPA axis dysfunction, where the brain is numb talking to the thyroid, that can really help decrease that conversion, prevent the T4 from going to T3. Certain nutrients like copper and selenium and zinc, also high levels of mercury can also be a big factor. So those are kind of just some good generalizations there. Now, getting to your next question that you asked, perfect timing wise, was the thyroid antibodies. So many thyroid conditions are actually brought upon by autoimmunity, meaning your immune system is making specific antibodies that are attacking the thyroid gland. One's known as TPO, or thyroid peroxidase enzyme. It's an enzyme that puts thyroid hormone together. And then the other one is the thyroglobulin antibody, which is the surface protein of the thyroid. And if you're making antibodies and you're tagging the thyroid, then you're going to be attacking it and breaking it down. And these B cells and B lymphocytes are going to be getting in there and attacking it. And that's not good, because as it's being attacked, it's like stabbing a knife into it, and thyroid hormone drips out. So your TSH and your thyroid hormone levels can be off for a long time. You could have hot flashes and anxiety and tachycardia and be sweating a lot. And that's a really good sign that you're starting this whole autoimmune progression. And again, conventional medicine will not get to the root cause. They ignore the immune mechanism, i.e. the antibodies. They forget what's driving it, and they just say, here's Synthroid, and they just want to get that thyroid TSH back nice and low again. But we're not getting with the simple things like the gluten and the grains and the inflammation and the insulin resistance and the infections that are so commonly addressing it.
Yep. I know there's a lot of people really close to me that are dealing with autoimmune conditions. And so that's something that comes up all the time. You've worked with many of those people directly and have helped them make the changes necessary to work on those antibody numbers specifically.
And I think that's why you did really well off the bat too, because one of the big changes you made, because you were like just starting to get into Dave's bulletproof diet, and you were cutting
Yep.
out grains and really cutting out
Mhm.
mycotoxins, and you were eating more fat, so you were stabilizing your blood sugar and getting your insulin better. I think that really helped with calming down any potential autoimmunity that may have been present.
Yeah, if I think back to some of the things that were going on at that time, it was definitely going on to the bulletproof diet at that time that helped a lot. That helped with a lot of the blood sugar
Big
stabilization.
time.
And you mentioned that that's one of the reasons there may be T4 to T3. Working on stress, getting the GI stuff fixed up. You ran the tests to do that. You also ran the adrenal tests, which I think just are more indicative that there's
Yeah.
a stressor in the system, whether it's physical or mental. So we worked on that, and then some supplements to help. Selenium being the most obvious one, and all of those things worked. And then we reran the numbers, and it was it took a while. Maybe this was a 12-month process, 18-month process where we worked everything out, but it was great. And is that functional medicine type process where you're doing what we just described? I mean, how common is that in your practice with patients you're seeing?
Well, it's really common, especially the autoimmune piece, because people are stressed. They're not eating good meals. They're insulin resistant because of the suppressed immune system of all the things I mentioned. Opportunistic infections kind of take hold as well. So it's a multi-layered kind of system that we're looking at. So you really got to wade through it systematically so we can get to all of the key linchpins. Because
Mm-hmm.
just doing one thing to systematically or symptomatically make you feel better may not be what kind of unlocks the healing long term.
Yep, makes sense. And so, just going back to the thyroid panel. I mean, when we first started working together, you didn't see that in any of my previous lab testing, so it's something you ordered right away.
Yes.
Is that something you like to do up front with all patients? Is just to see where those numbers are, or is it case by case?
It's case by case. It depends what symptoms are present off the bat. If
Mm-hmm.
we're going through the person's history and there's lots of energy issues and lots of mood issues, like
Mm-hmm.
let's say hair loss, outer third eyebrows, let's say cold fingers, cold hands, tingling, numbness, things like that, we will definitely order a thyroid. If we don't have a lot of the hair loss and the cold hands and cold feet stuff
Mm-hmm.
off the bat, we typically stick to the adrenals first, see how good or bad the adrenals are, and then I have them do temperature testing over the next month, and we monitor through there. And if
Cool.
symptoms are improving on the adrenal protocol and their temperatures look decent, we won't necessarily jump to the thyroid off the bat. If we're not quite getting the improvement we're looking at and temperatures are low, then we'll go and we'll dig into that thyroid.
Yep, that makes sense. And I've, personally for the last, say, 8 months, I've been on a ketogenic diet and have been doing really well with it. But I'd love to run another panel, see how my numbers stack up. And that kind of leads into my next question, which is a lot of people, when they go to the doctor, they may not be able to get the full panel ordered for various reasons. There has to be a diagnostic code or something like that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I know you have the panel available. Is that one of the panels people can get from you and just go to LabCorp and get it? I realize you got to pay out of pocket, but sometimes that's just the quickest and easiest way instead of having to negotiate with your doctor.
Oh, yeah. The panel that we have online, the complete thyroid panel in the store. So justinhealth.com, click on the Healthy Living store. You'll see the lab test button. Click it and look for the complete thyroid panel. I mean, that panel I think is about $150, and that's a complete.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run anything else for the most
Mm-hmm.
part on your
Yep.
thyroid. It's got all the thyroid markers you need. Typically, if that panel is not covered by insurance, right, that's over $1,000. So by just paying
Yep.
cash, you kind of cap your losses, so to speak, and that'll give you everything you need. That's a really good first line for anyone with thyroid issues. That'll give you everything you need to get a complete picture of what's going on.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people who we communicate with, and just a lot of people who are asking questions and stuff who may not be making progress as they make the nutritional changes. They go paleo, they make the dietary changes, they've adopted keto or some of those principles, and they're not seeing any changes in body composition. And so that's often something that I think of. And are those correlated? Would you start to look at thyroid and metabolic if you're not seeing changes once you make the nutritional interventions?
Absolutely. The thyroid can control metabolism, heat, and energy, so it's definitely a place that you want to look at for sure. When people have their thyroid working better, they tend to be able to have a higher metabolism, burn more calories, burn more systemic body fat, which is a really good thing. But not
Yep.
all the time. Some people, it's just when you get their thyroid working better, they're no longer depressed and constipated, and their hair starts growing back. So I
Yep.
see the thyroid kind of being having different priorities. They may not be the priorities that you want, so to speak, but
Fair enough.
it's amazing. We see different things happen, and I can't tell you how much depression and mood changes with better thyroid.
Yeah, and a lot of the people, a lot of our users who are on keto, actually, it's a small percentage, but they do start to report hair loss in some cases. And can you talk about when it may be, for example, a nutrient deficiency versus a thyroid, for example? Is it hard to tell? Any thoughts on that?
So you're talking about looking at the lab work. How can you tell it's a nutrient issue?
Well, let's say you were dealing with hair loss, for example, and you mentioned that thyroid could be one option. Could it also be just due to dietary issues, for
Absolutely.
example?
Absolutely. I mean, we need
And,
protein. They tend to all be connected, because if we have a protein issue, well, if we're having a protein malabsorption issue where it's affecting the hair, it's probably affecting the thyroid, because we need certain amino acids that would be in those foods to help make thyroid hormone, like tyrosine, for instance. So if it's showing up on the gut level, it's probably going to eventually make its way to the thyroid level too. So
protein specifically in the diet is what
yeah,
you'd be looking for.
yeah, I mean, high quality protein. I mean, if we have people with gut issues, we'll use like various collagen peptides and or free form amino acid products to deliver the protein in a way where there's no digestion required to really process it. That way it gives the digestion some time to relax while we work on fixing it. But I never just isolate variables. If I see the thyroid and I see protein and gut issues, we're going to fix everything, as we go through body system 1, 2, and 3. And if it's something we address in body system 1 with the thyroid, meaning where we look at ATF or ATM, adrenal thyroid male hormones, or adrenal thyroid female hormones, and we start to see the hair start coming back with thyroid hormone, that's a great sign. And then it may come back as we start repleting nutrients in body system 2 with the gut.
Makes sense.
I mean, we'll trace it back afterwards and kind of use this retrospective look at it and say, hey, when we did this, that happened more. When we did this, this happened more. Sometimes you can't tell because there's a delay. So we try to do our best and just fix what we find.
Yep, makes sense.
But,
well, I know I'm due for a full set of labs,
Yeah.
Thyroid panel included, and you'll be the first to take a look at them once they're ready. So, yeah, I've got to get working on that. And part of what you were helping me with was building Heads Up Health to help people track all of this information, particularly when you're working with health experts outside of the conventional system. Just having everything in one place and being able to share it with any doctor you want. So you and I will be working on that together in the near future.
Absolutely. And I want to touch upon one last thing, because I know we're really getting out there to the keto community, which I think is great. One situation that I'm seeing is most thyroid conditions, I'd say 99% off the bat, they're going to do so much better off the bat, especially if they're coming from a standard American diet going keto, because that's going to help insulin resistance. It's going to help this kind of numbness to this insulin receptor where, we're not getting the insulin low enough because the receptor is so numb to get sugar into the cell, right? Insulin's the key, the receptor is the lock, and basically the receptor site's not accepting the key, so we have to essentially push more keys into the hole to get that key out, to get that essentially door open to let the sugar in. So we get this insulin resistance, or more keys getting into the cell, and that's not a good thing, because insulin, when it's too high, can cause lots and lots of hormonal issues. One of them being thyroid conversion, or T4 to T3 thyroid hormone activation. So getting on a ketogenic diet is going to be essential, but it's going to really get that insulin level down. The only thing is, I find sometimes when people are long-term keto, sometimes we may go a little too low on the insulin, and if we add just a small amount of carbs, even just 10, 20 grams, it can be enough to get your insulin levels a little bit higher, and we see an aid in thyroid conversion. We'll see T3 go up on the lab work, we'll see hair improve, or maybe even temperature improve, but that tends to be when people are keto chronically or long-term. Everyone's going to benefit coming off the bat and get a really big benefit. It's long-term afterwards. We want to fine-tune it, and I'm totally non-dogmatic about it. If you can keep at a keto level, or that's great. If not, we just up it 10, 20 grams, see how we do. I had a patient just yesterday. We had about a quarter of sweet potato at night, and a lot of her low thyroid symptoms went away.
Makes sense. Yeah, well, I mean, this is all good stuff, Doc. I think there's so many people that need the full thyroid panel, maybe have never had it before. Maybe they're stuck just where they are in terms of their health transformation. I know it was a huge step for me, just seeing these numbers, figuring out how we address them. I know you make the panel available to people who can't get it from their doctor, which is awesome. Heads Up Health has got the software to help people track all of this stuff, especially if they're getting data from different labs and they want to manage it all in one place. So hopefully there's some people who can use the information here, get their own panel run, and it may be an important diagnostic piece for them as they work on their own health goals.
Absolutely. I'm going to put the complete thyroid panel in the link below. So if you're interested in it, feel free and click on it. That'll be a great way to access that panel.
Yep, and I can include some information for people who want to start getting all of their health records organized using Heads Up Health. There's a couple videos we put out there that just showed how to integrate all the medical records, basal temperature, macronutrients, so I can send that along as well.
Great. Any other questions, comments, or concerns, Dave?
No, this was great. I see this topic come up all the time, so I'm glad we were able to address it and provide some information on what the full thyroid panel is and what the markers are and some of the things you can start doing to fix it.
So anyone listening to this and kind of, has all these labs in front of them and not quite sure, what to do with it, get over to Heads Up Health, get it integrated in there so you can start seeing patterns, and then it'll be really fun as you go forward tracking your labs. You'll be able to see trends that you may not have seen otherwise.
Yep. Sounds great.
All right, Dave. Great talk. You have an awesome day.
Yep. Likewise. Thanks, Doc. Take it easy.
Thanks. Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.